Red Bull have made some insane statements about Sergio Perez's future at Red Bull, stating that even his 2024 seat is now in danger if he doesn't pick up the pace. Christian Horner is still silent about the situation, but Helmut Marko has now gone public and said he's actively looking for a replacement. And this has prompted Sergio Perez to send out the first signal that he may look for opportunities outside of Red Bull before his current Formula One contract ends at the end of 2024, or even at the end of this year if he's given the boot. Perez's future at Red Bull has been regularly questioned in a season in which teammate Verstappen has won 10 straight Grand Prix, and now Perez has revealed for the first time that he would consider alternative possibilities in addition to a potential stay at Red Bull beyond his current term. Sergio Perez does not yet know where he'll be working in 2 years. A position alongside the reigning world champion in 2025 is all but certain for the Mexican driver, whose contract expires after 2024. The six-time race winner is even leaving his options open for next year in case Red Bull decides to fire him. Perez says this in a recent interview. Despite having a contract until 2024, Sergio Perez has spoken out for the first time regarding a prospective future outside of Red Bull racing. Perhaps he was inadvertently referring to the period following next season in his chat with Spanish broadcaster DAZN, or perhaps he was looking ahead to what could happen as early as next year. In any event, the message is clear. Perez only wants to work in situations where he can provide value. Christian Horner has often stated that Perez will continue to compete for Red Bull in 2024. But even the Mexican has spotted advisor Helmut Marko delivering taunting blows at the driver beside Max Verstappen, implying a future for his team without Perez. Perhaps the Austrian is trying to put his driver on edge, or is there a chance that Perez will be acknowledged for his services performed after the current season? In any event, it would come as no surprise if Red Bull and Perez parted ways after 2024. But more and more rumors are emerging that their ways could part before the 2024 season. Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko has often stated that he is considering all possibilities for 2025, the first year Perez's contract with the Austrians expires. Red Bull senior management has often said that Perez is only under contract for next season. Even though he has a contract, the Mexican is keeping all of his options open. With the season we have had, it is important to hold the next races in an environment where I feel I can contribute. And that place for 2024 is not here. We'll have to look for other alternatives, Perez said. It should be noted that Perez stated the year incorrectly during the interview, referring to a new deal after 2024. But right now, my main focus is to be here, win more races, continue winning championships with Red Bull. I have a contract until next year, and at some point next year, we will sit down and talk. This is the first statement from Perez himself that 2024 may be his final season at Red Bull, and that while he would like to talk about 2025 and beyond, if he doesn't feel he can contribute, he's willing to accept his contract not being renewed. What are his choices if that turns out to be the case? Earlier this year, before Max Verstappen increased his advantage over him so drastically, Perez said, "With a family at home in Mexico, I wouldn't be doing this if I did not believe I could win the World Championship." Although he might have believed it at the start of the season, it's quite clear that right now, Sergio Perez is under intense scrutiny. With only Red Bull capable of winning on merit, the Mexican is the only one equipped to take on Max Verstappen. Unfortunately for Perez, a promising start to the season was followed by a dismal and agonizing slide. Q1 and Q2 eliminations often forced the 33-year-old into damage limitation on Sundays, allowing Verstappen to create a huge championship lead. Sergio Perez was penalized in numerous ways for being deemed a championship contender too soon. When his form deteriorated, the public's response was exasperated by the early excitement. Although Christian Horner thinks Perez is assured a seat in 2024, speculation will remain. This is due in part to Helmut Marko's ever-controversial statements on the subject, which are highly unexpected. While the spotlight in the F1 world is typically on Red Bull's evaluation of Perez, the Mexican's point of view should not be disregarded. After all, while race victories and podiums are easy to come by at Red Bull, he may be unable to commit to such a high-pressure environment in the long run. So where may Perez be in 2025? Perez would be 35 years old when he starts getting ready for the 2025 season. With Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso in the current Formula One field, there are drivers who are substantially older, and they have demonstrated to have scarcely surrendered any of their outstanding speed later in age. Both have also demonstrated this season that they can get the most out of their cars. Perez, for one, is not doing that with the Red Bull, unquestionably the greatest car on the field. However, he is just 33 years old. All of the F1 teams must be aware that Perez is battling alongside Verstappen and frequently makes unexpected slips. As a result, it is exceedingly improbable that at least one of the conventional top teams would sign Perez if he becomes a free agency. Indeed, Perez is no better than, say, Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc, or Carlos Sainz. However, he might be of interest to Aston Martin in a supporting capacity. After all, Perez has the essential Honda expertise. They will be the power unit supplier to Aston Martin from 26 and is a more consistent points collector than Lance Stroll. Perez would look at home as a runner-up with Alonso if he stays in F1 beyond next year. Should Alonso's career come to an end, Perez lacks the qualities and charisma to lead the ambitious Green Brigade. Perhaps teams in the midfield or backfield will seek to sign Perez to them on the short term, as Alfa Romeo did before in a similar instance with Valtteri Bottas. But Perez should then question himself, why would he do such a thing? Does it truly make him happy to be driving his final laps anonymously and having experienced success, being happy with a single point every 5 Grand Prix? Perez has been in a similar scenario for years, having driven for many mid-tier teams. Furthermore, these teams did not want him at the end of 2020. Perez was able to postpone his F1 retirement owing to Red Bull.
Hey Sergio, welcome to Red Bull.
Perez could depart Red Bull with his head held high and at least one Vice World Champion title in his pocket in less than a year and a half. In his home Mexico, Perez will be remembered as a sporting great, as no compatriot has ever been as successful as him. It appears that now is the optimum time for Perez to grasp the opportunity to say farewell to Formula One and enjoy his time with his family. And if that happens, the next question arises: who will replace Perez at Red Bull? So what might Red Bull do if it decides not to renew Perez's contract, which is a big if right now? Lando Norris, whose McLaren contract runs out to the end of next year, has been mentioned a lot in this connection recently. And at Monza, when asked about the idea of having his friend Verstappen as an F1 teammate, Norris said, "It's definitely something I would be open to in the future. I think it would be great to work alongside someone like that, and at the same time see where I can really stand against him. I'd be open for it." Helmut Marko and Christian Horner are both outspoken admirers of Norris's ability and have attempted to sign him twice before, but he has instead signed with McLaren. Despite the team's in-house possibilities of Daniel Ricciardo, Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson, he is likely the team's #1 pick at this time. However, in F1, things may change quickly. And Helmut Marko has already stated that Lando Norris is his favourite teammate for Verstappen. As previously stated, Perez is constantly scrutinised at Red Bull due to his troubles in the RB19. Helmut Marko is evaluating potential options at AlphaTauri after the Mexican driver's inability to challenge Max Verstappen. Marko has made a number of scathing remarks against Perez, which are sometimes inconsistent and difficult to comprehend. However, in an interview with Servus TV, the Austrian was blunt in his appraisal of the 33-year-old. Perez is not consistent. He's not always focused. Perez has a contract until 2024, and Norris has a contract until 2025. Unfortunately, it's that long. He, speaking about Norris, is definitely a candidate for us. At Toro Rosso, we'd already reached an agreement with him at the time until his manager realised there was an option for a McLaren contract. In terms of youth and speed, he would suit us very well. Sergio, on the other hand, is already over 30 and is expecting his 4th child. So he also has other interests, so you have to see what happens next. Christian Horner frequently attempts to dispel rumours about Red Bull, emphasising that Perez is committed through 2024. Helmut Marko, on the other hand, is clearly skeptical about Perez's qualifications, at least in the long run. Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda are 2 bright AlphaTauri prospects, while the seasoned, though injured Daniel Ricciardo impressed in his brief return. It's still possible that Red Bull will stick with the same squad next season. However, there is an equally realistic possibility that another shift in the F1 driver market awaits. But this would mean that one of the AlphaTauri drivers would drive for Red Bull in 2024 to try and secure the seat before Red Bull are able to sign Lando Norris for 2025. But knowing Helmut Marko, he would have signed Lando Norris for Red Bull before the start of the 2024 season. So will we see Norris in a Red Bull in 2025? Or perhaps even in 2024 if Red Bull buy out his contract? What do you think? Let us know in the comment section down below.